Mabuhay, Kamustika, welcome. How are you? This is Bob from Love Beyond the Sea. Glad to have you here tonight. Hope all is well with you. Last time we did one of these, we talked about questions to gauge compatibility with a Filipina. And today we're going to be talking about 32 ways not to blow it with a Filipina. And I am very convinced that um, it would only take a few people commenting to come up with some ways are that are not on my list. So, in fact, I've already thought of at least one of them here. I'll add that on at the end of the list. But this is 32 ways, so glad you're here. Tonight's topic involving foreigner and Filipino relations on Love Beyond the Sea is how to not blow it with a Filipina. The ways I list are in the negative, but all you need to do is turn them around for a positive angle. I just thought titling it this way would get a little more attention. This topic was suggested by a subscriber, and since I hadn't had plans to cover this, I thought I would go to work on it. Please subscribe to Love Beyond the Sea for help with foreigner and Filipina relations. Now, I expect this, as it usually does, to lead to some topics outside the scope here, but that's fine. It's hard to just isolate on one thing that you get started with. Now, I'm going to define blow it to mean to not take advantage of what someone could have potentially achieved, or to lose out on a relationship that had already started, but it's never going to be finished. In sports terms, it would be fumbled or struck out. But even in those cases where there is effort, there is potential for success. Some of these things might resonate with some of you, and I want you to know I am not trying to be critical if I happen to mention something here that you did. Hopefully, if you did, it wasn't something too serious and you were able to recover from it. So I have a list of 32, which I will list in the description box. Some are specific, while others are more general. A lot applies to any relationship, but I will try to make application to a Filipina. Many are in the stage of getting to know each other. Others can happen after meeting in person. And that seems fair to me, because if somebody blows it before they have even met each other in person, then they won't end up meeting in person, possibly. Things could even unravel after that. And let's face it, things can fall apart after marriage too. I will try to cover as much as I can think of tonight. And please comment on a time when you might have blown it or almost blew it with a Filipina. So I am ready to get to work here. And I have this underarm deodorant here because I'm expecting a lot of work. This is the kind we got in the Philippines. We actually cannot get it here where I am. It's called Nivea Silver Protect. I really like the smell. We got it in the Philippines, and the last time we went there, I picked up like 12 of them to last until the next time we are there. And it kind of reminds me of being there, so that's why I buy it. So maybe a person doesn't consider himself attractive. Maybe they're not in tip-top shape. Maybe they don't think they make enough money. After enough rejection, it can become difficult to believe that you can ever find someone to marry. You might feel like you're too old for a Filipina. You've got to believe that it can happen. One time, this was 30 years ago or more, in a bar, and I was sitting there watching the band, and there was a woman in front of me in that next aisle, and she looked my way and she said, would you like to dance? And I ignored it. And then she said, would you like to dance? And then I thought, well, why is she bothering me? And then I thought, maybe she's talking to me, but I just didn't think that was possible. So finally, the third time, she says, would you like to dance? So, I kind of sheepishly turn around, and there's nobody there. Okay, so she was talking to me. And then when I turned back to look at her, she wasn't there. So I blew that because I didn't think it had potential. So there have probably been a lot of guys who potentially blew it before they even got started. A lot of men haven't even considered dating overseas, not to mention assuming if they tried it, that it wouldn't work. There have been many men who considered themselves not the greatest catch in the sea, yet felt they had nothing to lose and everything to gain, so they took one step at a time, learned a little bit about the culture in the Philippines, maybe talked to people they knew who were married to a Filipina, then decided to spin the wheel, so to speak. And what I like about looking at the Christian Filipina testimonial section where I met my wife is photographs of the gentlemen who proudly state they have married the one or found the one. And I've made a video about that topic. They declare they are no longer talking to others or they have gotten engaged or married. What I observe is that they don't look like Hollywood actors. I haven't seen a Robert Redford or Brad Pitt or Harrison Ford look alike. And I am in that section too. They were inclined to write the website and tell them they appreciated their help. And I have seen the same thing in many YouTube videos, enough for me to declare that it would be better to let the Filipina decide if she wouldn't be interested. It is true the man that marries a Filipina, especially to bring her to his country, has made a great effort to talk to her, to see her in person, meet her parents, spend the money needed for the visa processing, the flights, the green card, necessary fees, etc. So that person took care of business. He didn't assume a Filipina wouldn't be interested in marrying him. He wasn't afraid, which is my first way here of blowing it with a Filipina. And the last statement basically would be that he would be blowing it if he was assuming that it had no chance to succeed. If he assumed that she wouldn't be interested, well, he's probably blown it already. But if he's afraid, that's the next way of blowing it with a Filipina. We don't want you to do that. We want you to learn from these hypothetical mistakes or even the mistakes of others. Brothers of the blood of Christ, thank you for being here. Jimmy Boom Boom, deodorant. Well, I could be sweating a lot because, we have a lot of work to do here tonight. So that's why the deodorant. And Phil's to Phoenix. Hi, John. Thank you for being here. Let's get started on being afraid. That's another way of blowing it. By fear, I mean being too cautious, unnecessarily cautious. It could be a number of things. It could be a fear of rejection, the thought of just more rejection in their life or by getting rejected by someone in another country could be a cause of not getting involved, which is a form of blowing it because I think the average man has a better chance than he thinks. He might lack confidence, which would cause him to be afraid, which I hope I can help with by sharing as much as I can to help. It could be that Skyping with a much younger and pretty Filipina would be intimidating to that man. It may even be possible that, believe it or not, a guy could be afraid of success, that he might actually be able to strike up a relationship with a Filipina, and then what? Perhaps a lack of success in the past represents only getting so far, and the unexplored territory becomes scary. And there's something else that could make someone blow an opportunity before it even starts. That would be by believing the stereotypes that he's heard. No doubt stereotypes exist for a reason, but I have heard some people talk as if it is a guarantee that certain things will happen. So why even bother? She only wants your money. She will leave once she comes to your country. And I will link the video why you should bring your Filipina to America in the description box. She's talking to men behind my back. She won't really love me. It won't last. I won't be able to trust her. And you should take heart that many foreign men have successful relationships with Filipinas. I mean, I know of several right here in my small circles here where we live. I would bet that they are aware of various stereotypes, yet were able to step through that minefield and ended up marrying the woman of their dreams. Assuming the stereotypes would apply in your case automatically, then that would be blowing it before it happens also. I have just one more way to blow it that is real and denies a man a tangible opportunity to marry a Filipina here before he even gets off the ground. That would be by not making the effort, by not making the effort. This could be a summary or catch-all of the reasons to remain on the sideline and not get on the playing field. Two men have told me that sometime in their past, they wanted to try to marry a woman from a foreign country. At one time, one of them said it was with a degree of regret. Maybe it was the length of time it would take or the money it would cost. Maybe they are men who got sidetracked with other priorities, or perhaps their initial interest wasn't very strong to begin with. Some men have tried multiple Asian Filipina dating sites to no avail. Some have held memberships for a long time and they're still at ground zero. I want to clarify that there are legitimate reasons for not making the effort sometimes, for starting and stopping, for hitting the pause button. Many family issues, health issues, and job issues do happen. The rest of these occur after getting the ball rolling. So one other way of blowing it with a Filipina is by not separating yourself in the profile. By not separating yourself in the profile. We have to remember that blowing it at this stage means not meeting the Filipina in person and having to start all over. Most likely, most of the time in the relationship of a foreigner and Filipina, it's spent away from each other and online. And if I haven't already done so, I will have a video on webcamming with a Filipina. A lot of men say much the same about themselves as the next guy, making it hard for a Filipina to take an interest in his profile and easier to look at another one. So when you make a profile, that's the first impression. And I don't want to get into why I know, but I have seen the profiles, that men make on other dating sites. I think, I wanted to see what they're doing and what I should be saying. And well, a lot of the times they're saying the same things. And that's not separating yourself. And that could be blowing it. For example, try not to say that you like to go to the gym, or you like to party, or you are understanding, or you love children, etc. Might be true, but that could describe a ton of guys. It is like a Filipina who describes herself as a simple woman and doesn't write much more. That could describe about any one of them. My point here is to separate yourself with your profile. You only get one chance to make the first impression. You are not the same as everybody else, so your profile should reflect that. That means having to put some thought into it. You could write one and have your family and friends read it and tell you if it describes you in the best, most accurate way. How did I do that? Well, I cut to the chase quickly. I wrote about what was important to me in life, what I longed for, what I hadn't accomplished yet. I was looking for a wife to go through life with, hand in hand. And I regret not having saved a copy of this original profile on Christian Filipina, or I would just share with you exactly what I said. I wasn't anticipating having a YouTube channel back then and rarely watched expat videos, and maybe never had. I came across as serious, but knowing what I wanted, and described a little of what a marriage would be like for a Filipina to me. And I think that certainly separated myself from probably a lot of other profiles. My wife marveled at how long it was, and it wasn't that long, but it was effective and it meant something to her. Another way you could blow it, and there's lots of them, and please chime in with one if you happen to have some experience about that. I may not, have thought of that. But another way to blow it is by revealing too much too soon. And these won't all be in the stage of dating somebody online, but it's important to mention because, you could potentially lose out on a good opportunity just by, saying something that she feels isn't appropriate, or we're not saying things that she thinks are. So hopefully there will be something here you can glean from this. But by revealing too much too soon, that could be a bad thing. Now, I understand it's very exciting to be chatting with a Filipina that you daydream about, could be your wife someday. A man could find such a sense of relief that he comes on too strong by revealing too much too soon. It could be health issues, traumas in their life, but it is enough for the Filipino to feel like they have to become a counselor when they just want to see if there's chemistry and what your personality is like in this early stage. If the man thinks that by being very open and very transparent early on will show the Filipina that he is easy to talk to and relate with, and he's not the strong silent type, she might be caught off guard and become skeptical. Now, personally, I tend to be transparent, but I had to hold back when I met my wife. I tried to focus on what she was like and the names of her family members, and talk about our families. If I brought up something in my past that I wanted her to know, I tried to be general until the time came to be more specific. When the time was right and she felt safe and comfortable with me, she began to open up more. You might notice the two of you have great chemistry, but that doesn't mean it's a good idea to become too personal and revealing too soon. Trying to set the tone with too much openness too early could make her feel uncomfortable, but so can the next way a guy could blow it early with a Filipina. That would be by not revealing enough. Where I personally would have trouble biting my lip with the previous way because, I tend to be more open to a point. But some might be more inclined to not reveal enough. A profile should make her remember what you wrote, make you stand out from other men. And this applies to when the two are communicating by chat and by webcam. If the Filipina asks a specific question, it would seem best to me to answer it as completely as you can. For her to know the man, she needs to know that he is honest and she can communicate with him. If he gives the impression that he is withholding something, she is apt to become suspicious. As he opens up over time, the communication becomes more natural and she will likely follow suit. Using an alias for too long. Thank you, a twit in the Philippines. Yeah, that would blow it because you're revealing something. I had a girl do that to me once, again, many years ago. When she opened up to me, she used her real name. But yeah, I wouldn't. If you think there's a good reason to use an alias early on, that's your prerogative. I haven't really thought through that much from the man's perspective. However, that would blow it. It could go either way. Both could blow it with each other if they use an alias for too long. I don't see, unless you're afraid that you put your name out there and they do a lot of research or something. I'm not sure why somebody would do that. Another way to blow it would be by bragging. Bragging. The Filipina won't want to hear bragging. It would be easy to start bragging about past accomplishments to show her that you're a good catch. In addition, a man might brag to make himself more at ease if he is nervous. This would be a way that would blow it with some Filipinas. It is much better to save your big accomplishments in life to flow from just a natural conversation, especially if she asks you a question and you give her an impressive answer. Just try not to get on a roll with it. Another way of blowing it with a Filipina, by not moving quick enough to doing webcams. I found that the Filipinas I chatted with were very easy to talk to and very pleasant. A man doesn't really have to worry about having an awkward conversation. Now, of course, the Filipina might be shy, but I'll bet she'd be easy to talk to. You can probably tell by feel the point that you should step it up and move with more intentionality. If the time comes when the Filipina likes the foreign man, she's going to want to see him on camera. If they have messaged back and forth a few times and all is well, there will come a point where the decision has to be made to see each other on camera. And I think this is best to be initiated by the foreign man. I really don't think there's anything to be uncomfortable about. Nothing wrong in pursuing a Filipina. Check the webcams or the live streams I've done on questions to ask, and there will be additional ones in the future at different stages to help you know a Filipina. Print those lists off, and you got a great head start to asking her just maybe 5 or 6 questions that could take up half an hour of conversation. Several things come to mind if this is delayed. That's taking it to webcam. One is that the man is enthralled with being able to have someone to chat with on a regular basis. And sure, it feels great. He might be enjoying it so much he forgets that at some point they need to see each other on camera. Another is that his biggest need at the time might be to simply have someone to communicate with via messaging and chats. However, it could also be that he is a little tentative and afraid of going face to face on an app like Skype. This is the first hurdle that needs to be leaped. And after several chats to break the ice, if one is serious about finding a Filipina, then it's time to progress to seeing each other face to face. And she may have other competitors for her time. And if you believe that you have a lot to offer her, then don't fear doing a webcam with her. Once you are in that stage, there's something to think about also to not blow it. Continued webcamming. Well, if the Filipina expects continuing webcamming, then she's probably thinking like, remember, they move faster than the women do here, let's say in America. And as you mentioned that twit in the Philippines, it may be that even without being in person with him, that she views an online webcam experience as something with more something to it, importance than it would otherwise. But to me, it depends how your webcam goes. If you have not told the Filipina, hey, I'd love to chat with you again, and then she keeps coming back with wanting to webcam, then you may just have to send her a message saying, I like you, but you're moving a little bit too fast for me here, or just be honest that maybe you can do a webcam in a few days. And now that you jog my memory, before I met my wife, I think there was one Filipina that did want to contact me a lot. I think she was late on the chat we were supposed to do, and then I moved on. I probably chatted with somebody else, and that's kind of a red flag to me, especially if it happens more than once. Because if they really, really want to have some potential with that foreigner, I think she'll make every effort to be on time, to a time that she agreed herself to meet with. So if she expects continued webcamming, that's good or bad, depending on whether you like her or not, and perhaps another webcam or two will tell you all you need to know. So thank you for that comment. Now, another way to blow it here is if the foreigner, is uncomfortable asking and answering tough questions. If he's uncomfortable asking and answering tough questions. In order to keep momentum going, certain things must be talked about, and being hesitant to do this can blow up with a potentially good Filipina wife. These don't have to be raised right after seeing each other face to face. However, at some point, for the development of what you have going, there shouldn't be any question or concern that is off limits. What would qualify as tough questions? Well, for example, past relationships. I think you should talk about that. Drug use, substance abuse, sexual history, financial situation, Religious convictions, relationship with family members, how do you and your family get along? If there's anybody you don't get along with, really anything either of you must know or feel that you should know before you are going to get serious and potentially marry this Filipina. So those things are not something you talk about on the first webcam, that's for sure. Hi, John, Phil's to Phoenix, but respect the 12 to 15 hour time difference. Yeah, that could be a problem, John, because it's not always like our case where, um, when I got up to go to work, it was evening. We could talk for an hour or two if we just let the camera roll while I was cooking breakfast, which she wanted to do, just wanted to see what was going on there. And she would often do the same thing. Excuse me. And then, of course, in the evening, I get home from work. For example, now it might be about 7:30, 7:26 in the morning in the Philippines. And so that was another very natural time for us. However, that doesn't always work for most people. And if she has unusual job hours, I mean, her job hours could conflict with this, I think, natural benefit of the time zone difference, making it more of a challenge to come up with a time to chat with her. So yeah, be sensitive to that. It may not be a deal where she's avoiding you. It just may be that you're going to have a more difficult time finding a time to talk with her. At that rate, maybe the weekend provides the most opportunity to have the most talking. And Jimmy Boom Boom, lying about your age as a turnoff or a way to blow it. Yeah, I never thought about that. That's a turn off both ways. But yeah, if I'm telling her, I'm 50, and then, well, now that we're getting serious, hon, I really want to confess that I'm 55 or something like that. No. A Filipina will value honesty, and once you say one thing like that, that may not seem like it's that outrageous, but once there's a little bit of doubt, and then she can wonder if you're being honest about something else that she said also. Saying something negative about the Philippines, a twit in the Philippines suggests absolutely that happens to be a way to blow it with a Filipina. And I'm sure that will come up here as we go on. If you're not careful and you're not aware of what the Philippines is like, you could go out there and meet her, and be really shocked by the environment. And you have to remember that she is not shocked with the environment. You have to keep in mind that she's probably very in love with her family, and she doesn't see it as being as dire and distressing as you might if you're from middle class in America or something like that. So you might just want to make small talk and say, wow, this place is terrible, there's so much, I can't believe there's so much poverty, or wow, I can't believe all the pollution here. And that may be true, but I would rein in on those kind of comments. And because they are sensitive about saying something about negative about the Philippines. When I use the term third world country, my wife bristles at that. Well, here it's a third world country. I didn't think that was that bad, but it bothers her. So now I say instead developing country. And you know what? She still doesn't like the term developing country either. And she's from Davao City, Philippines, which is a developing city. That's what I read several years ago when I went to marry her. Neck up only pics if you are a fat guy. Well, that's what I will say about that, Jimmy, is you have to be honest about, your appearance, um, and one's appearance is important. What you're wearing, if your hair is going to be a disaster, or your beard is, you know, all over the place, and a lot of guys are heavy, and the Filipina will still give them a chance. I wouldn't wait until, you know, you're engaged to say, oh, by the way, here's my weight or something like that. This just gets back to being honest. And if she asks you a question, be honest and answer her. I had a Filipina tell me she met a young Dutch traveler who told her that he thought Cebu was terribly polluted and dirty, twit in the Philippines. And for all I know, Cebu is terribly polluted and dirty. And she might not even see it that way. If she's from there, that's all she knows. And so saying something like that to her might make you feel more comfortable because you have something to say to her that she can't disagree with. That could backfire because a Filipina is very sensitive about, foods, her family, her environment, her friends, and that's something you want to learn. Not blowing it by being critical of the Philippines. She will see it as you being critical in all likelihood, even though that may not be your intent at all. No, they didn't like that one bit, and that would take. I don't think that's a end all or deal breaker, but you'd have to say some good things and be very apologetic and not defensive, but apologetic, because if that hurts her, then I'm just telling you why, because they have a lot of pride in the Philippines about the Philippines. Yeah, asking them to stand up and turn around too soon on webcam. Jimmy Boom Boom, absolutely. And I don't think it's a problem to say, hun, do you mind standing up and letting me see what you look like? Because every time we talk, we're sitting here just like I am now, or maybe the camera's even higher. Nothing wrong with that at all. I'm sure I did that with Isa at some point because, I wanted to know. She may have actually let me see that before I had to ask. You wouldn't do it right away. Hi, babe. Hey, show me what you got. Yeah, that she'll be showing you the door probably if you do that. So if you're somebody inclined to do that, then don't do that. In time you're gonna find out anyway. Another comment here. I have a tool which I use to scan Facebook profiles, Facebook Scanner, and I check their profiles out. That usually to get a feel for them, and that's not a bad idea. It's quite possible by doing so, when you make some notes about what you've learned, that if you're careful, you can avoid some areas not to talk about because that it would bother her. But I didn't know there was such a thing, and certainly with such a very long distance relationship, availing yourself of something like that is something I would personally prefer doing rather than trying to set them up with some kind of a test. Nothing wrong with doing some homework because there's a lot at stake here. Their text personalities are usually different to their spoken personalities. Yeah, the texting, we always had trouble understanding each other on text. I always thought my wife was kind of sometimes upset with me when we were texting. That's just the way her words came off. I didn't get that impression when I saw her in person. But if you learn from, for example, by your investigation or observation of Facebook or other social media, that she's one way or one personality, and in time is consistently a different way with you, that might be something to find out why. Initially, it may be because of nerves, wanting to make a good impression. Maybe she's not used to chatting to a foreigner. But yeah, I would be looking for consistency in the way she communicates with, pretty much everybody in general. I need to delete this thing here to read the next comment. Don't make negative comments about the annoying rooster noises. They love the roosters and are immune to the sounds. It sounds like roosters. In fact, I always tell my wife, I like the rooster sounds. Um, I like hearing them in people's videos from the Philippines. And when I was in the Philippines, I like hearing those roosters too. I've even asked her, sweetheart, is there any chance we'll end up having a rooster in the Philippines? They would be called like Rusty the Rooster 1, Rusty the Rooster 2, and have a pet rooster that we'd end up eating. Of course, I don't mind the roosters. The very first thing I heard when I was communicating with Filipinas on webcam, and it was amusing to me. I hadn't heard a rooster forever, and there were these roosters in the background. I made this comment. Maybe I shouldn't have. I just made a comment. Ha ha. Is that a rooster in the background? I mean, that's kind of quaint or something like that. In hindsight, maybe that wasn't a good idea, because eventually I realized he could say that with everybody I was talking to. So that's something to be sensitive about. I like the roosters too, and we can throw karaoke in that. Karaoke is something you hear a lot, and we do it here at home. We got one now, and I haven't done it with my wife in the Philippines, but her family did, and we're going to do that the next time we're there, because we've been practicing. So we're ready for karaoke. And if karaoke isn't your thing, just recognize that culturally it's a very big deal. It might even have originated in the Philippines, or so I've heard. So you don't want to be critical of roosters or karaoke. You don't want to say something like, boy, these jeepneys look archaic, or something like that. Even if they do, just be aware that's a standard mode of transportation. Those tricycles with the sidecars, I'd never been in anything like that, but once you've been there enough times, it's a great thing to be able to get a ride in one of those, and you feel very good about somebody helping you get around. So those are other things not to lightly make fun of, because I think that would be blowing it. Better names would be lechon, adobo, for food, right? Would that be adobo? That's like a soup with pork in it, I think. Lechon would be pork. And by the way, the first time you see in the Philippines a big pig with the post, through it so they can cook it over the flames, that's interesting. But try not to make fun of that, because you're going to see that a lot. When I married her, they killed the two of them in the backyard, and were cooking those for our wedding, and that's a popular food there. I'm just glad I wasn't around when they happened to do that, but I know when they pick them up and set them on the scales, it sounds like you're hearing an exorcism. It's a terrible sound. Should you admit to your Filipina that the only place you have been in the Philippines is Angeles City? That's how my wife says it is. Angeles City, spending time with bar girls. Crazy, insane YouTubers. Well, I think you should always submit or admit to something that you've done, although if she has any awareness at all, she's going to think that you're a player, and somebody that plays games, and a good Filipina, the kind you want to marry, uh, is going to size that up pretty quick. She might give you the time of day, but she probably won't give you her hand in marriage. So, um, I mean, look, if she says, if you're being honest and with me, and you ask her that, uh, she asks you, and you say that to her, and she says, "Well, why were you there?" Then you've not put yourself in a position where you have to answer it, or she knows you're withholding something. You always want to be honest. If her sister says hi during your video chat and her sister is hot, be careful not to flirt, look too excited, or ask questions about her. Yeah, look, I agree. And it's very easy to see a beautiful Filipinas, or a dime a dozen physically beautiful Filipinas, whether it's on a cam with her, somebody walks by, a friend, a relative, if she notices you giving her that look, like that, you know, checking her out. I do think you just blew it. I think you probably blew it. In fact, now that you mentioned that, Jimmy, when you're in the Philippines and you're there, whether it's the first time or second time or third time, you can be overwhelmed by the beautiful women there. And, she just might have her eyes on you to see if you're looking around and checking it out, especially if you go to the mall or something. So, no, you don't want to do that. You're doing a webcam, you want to focus on her, you're with her in person, you want to focus only on her. And that's a lot easier to make a mistake in the Philippines like this, because there are so many lovely Filipinas. I think they are the most beautiful women in the world for me, and scientific studies have proven that they're 50% softer, warmer, and smoother than other women. So overall, they're very, very lovely and attractive women. So another comment here, and I appreciate this. Everybody is going to learn from this, even if it takes them 3 times to work through this video. You don't have to bite it all off at once. Let's see. Phil's to Phoenix, you were naming the roosters. Yeah, when I made that comment, names for animals aren't common there. They become food too quickly. Rusty the Rooster 1 would be followed by Rusty the Rooster 2 and Rusty the Rooster 3. If we happen to do that, there's probably some roosters around the house it's already built. We already built it in the Philippines, and I'm sure there's other roosters there too, so I can get my fill of those sounds and get my morning alarm clock out there. But yeah, I can see where they don't have a long shelf life. Be sure to laugh your head off when they make a Maganda joke. A twit in the Philippines, you'll have to give me some clarification. I don't want to assume what Maganda joke is. I don't even want to guess. I'm struggling with wanting to take a guess, but I'm not. So I'm going to read another way to blow it here if you want to clarify what that means, so somebody, make sure that they laugh their head off when the Filipina makes a Maganda joke. Another thing here on my list is by lingering too long in the safe zone. Lingering too long in the safe zone. Being hesitant to get serious. This could involve someone who has done a webcam with a Filipina, but for whatever reason is not being as aggressive as they could. The Filipina is on the other side, anticipating a move to a little more serious relationship level. At worst, this could indicate the man isn't ready to move into a new relationship for reasons only he would know. It reminds me of singleness and marriage. There is a safety zone in not having to deal with the issues that come up in a marriage. There could be a perception that marrying her is best, but then is it really? It may seem safer to stay single, but is that best long term? Should he take more risk, and how much risk is he comfortable taking? They always ask how many other Panays, and that is how you pronounce it, are you chatting with? how do you answer this? Um, I would answer it honestly. Um, I I don't know if my wife asked me or I offered it to her, but I think I told everybody. Yeah, I just got started doing this, just signed up, and so I'm going to be talking to as many as I can to get to know them. And I don't think you have any reason to be. I don't think that's blowing it because I think they have the expectation that you're chatting with or are going to chat with a multitude of Filipinas. I mean, you do have choices. You have so many choices, it could take forever to make a decision, actually. So if they ask that, yeah, that's okay. There's no big surprise. I would just tell her, yeah, I've been talking to, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say their names because I don't know, that could give them the impression that you're really serious about them and maybe then they have no chance. But saying, here's what I would say. I've met 4 or 5 actually that I just started to get to know, and frankly, you're on my list too, and I like you because, and I'd like to know more about you. But I hope you understand that I'm ready to commit. I'm ready to get married, but I need to be sure. So I need to be helping my odds a little bit. So I hope you don't mind that I'm speaking to other Filipinas, and I really don't think they will, because at some point, you're going to be looking around unless you find, like some people do, the first one right away. My wife did not want me talking to others because in her situation, she wanted somebody that was going to prove himself very serious. And that happened to be me. So she kind of wanted to see if that was the case. And I had talked to others, couldn't make up my mind, didn't want to do it for the rest of my life. I had like 2 pages of lists of women to keep track of, and it was getting so overwhelming, it wasn't even enjoyable. So she wanted to go steady, and I said, well, I'll give it a chance. If it doesn't work out, I go back to my other list. Most Filipinas, I wouldn't expect to be that bold. And in hindsight, I'm glad that my wife was. A twit in the Philippines says they make a joke about appearances, or one of them asks for a relative of yours in a joking manner. That's Maganda. Um, well, I guess there could be, with a different culture, there could be a lack of being on the same wavelength when it comes to the humor. And she may make a comment or a joke, a lighthearted comment. I may not even know what she means. Is she serious? Should I say I don't understand? Is that going to be a bad thing? But you're going to go through that at times because the humor is different, expressions are different, and all right to say I don't understand, or or make an uncomfortable laugh and see what she thinks. The joke isn't funny enough to laugh at, but usually you should laugh to be polite. Yeah, some people are better at faking a laugh than others. I'm not very good at it. I'd probably just stare or something like that. Um, but the least you can do is smile, I guess, if she tells you a joke and it goes right past you, or you just flat out don't think it's funny. Just smile. That's better than saying, I don't get it. That's strange. Just smile. So yeah, be ready for that too. And I learned another Filipino word today, and that's always good. Another way of let's see, maybe I didn't finish that thought yet. Okay, well, I'm going to move on in case I did. Don't want to repeat myself. Another way of blowing it with a Filipina is by not being willing to focus on one Filipina. By not being willing to focus on one Filipina. At some point in time, you got all these choices of beautiful Filipinas that you're trying to narrow down, that they have a quality about them that would make them a good wife. And you may narrow that down to a handful. and wondering if you're ever going to choose. But at some point, you do. At this point, the foreigner has identified some Filipinas, seen them on camera, gets along well with them, and this is related to the previous point of lingering too long in the safe zone. He has perhaps gotten serious enough with all his options to be able to focus on one, and it can be very difficult. It would be blowing it to become paralyzed and lose out on a Filipina by not moving forward with her. Imagine a friend of yours asking you how it's going with, the Filipina you've been communicating with, and you reply that you just aren't sure what to do because you've got other good options, it would seem. And they might just think to themselves, my good friend is going to blow it if he doesn't make a move on her because she would make him a good wife. So it's certainly okay to talk about your prospects once you get to a certain point, get some impressions from your friends. Maybe they can help nudge you out of that safe zone into focusing more on a Filipina. Having choice is a good thing. That's the way I look at it. Not that it's a bad thing, because it's difficult to sort through them all. And there are more ways to blow it with a Filipina. Okay. How do you answer why don't you want a girl or a guy? I think you mean from your own country. Is that what you're saying, Jimmy Boom Boom? How do you answer why don't you want to? Oh, or if they ask me, okay, I'm sorry. Why don't I want a woman from my own country? No, that's a very fair question. And she may or may not have in mind what you're going to tell her. I'm sure I've told my wife this multiple times in different scenarios, different ways, that the reason I'm giving up now on a woman from my own country is because I have invested a lot of time and gotten absolutely nowhere. I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong. I still am looking for a good wife with certain qualities. I'm not sure I'm going to find them here. Maybe I'm just, too old to marry somebody here. What I don't think you should do is just go on a rampage, ripping apart women from your country, because then you come off sounding like a complainer. And you don't want to do that. I would briefly touch on some of these things that I've talked about, but then try to draw the conversation, the chat, back to what you are looking for and why you think that you have a better chance of finding that in the Philippines. I don't think she's asking for a big dissertation on your part when she asks you that question. She just wants you to respond to it in, somewhat intelligent, honest way, and I think then you'll earn her respect for doing that. There was at one time in my life, I fell for someone who did not feel the same way about me. I was moving quicker than they were prepared for, and this comes under the category by moving too fast. You can blow it with somebody if you're moving too fast, which means faster than you can work effectively. This will be a case of moving in too fast, and you have to be careful not to do that, because moving too fast due to not having carefully considered the qualities of the Filipina, or perhaps if he is even ready to move on after a recent relationship, because if he's got to heal from things, then he's still suffering. He's got a lot of emotional wounds. Then he probably needs to either move very cautiously on a very much friendship level, or just stay on the sideline until he is healed up. And I think knowing as much as you can about the Philippines culture is a way for you to avoid moving too fast, because then you say things that end up blowing it that you weren't even aware of. But you have to be careful not to move too fast. You have to be comfortable with your own pace. Just because somebody else moves faster, that doesn't mean that you can. There may be reasons why they did and can effectively, and there may be reasons why you should not do that, for your own effectiveness. Where I work, working too fast means working faster than you are able to work effectively. It understands that some people can work effectively at greater speeds than others and avoid mistakes and errors, and that applies here too, I think, for looking for Filipina. All depends on the person. But one time there was a woman in my life. I was blind to how she felt about things. I moved way too fast, and I got really hurt in the process. I think I had so many things going on in my mind, about how I wanted it to be, that I really didn't get around to asking as much about her, how she felt things were. I was just going way too fast. Maybe you could reply that you're looking in your own country as well, even if it's not true. Well, if it's totally false, if it's totally not true, I don't know. You have to be careful. If I say, well, I've given up on my own country, who knows what kind of a vibe that will give her. I don't know. She might be uncomfortable with that. Well, why would he give up on women in America? That sounds so strange. What is he looking for? So you might compromise and say, well, I'm open to somebody here, but to this point, I've not had any success at all, and I'm not sure that's even going to work out. I know men who found a wife in the Philippines, and at this point in my life, I'm interested in that. And I would like to get to know some Filipinas to see if maybe I can be somebody that marries them too. So yeah, and it's important to think about, these types of things. You never know what kind of questions she's going to ask you. The less you're caught off guard, the better. An actual tough question that they ask is, what kind of girl do you want? Jimmy Boom Boom, what kind of girl do you want? Well, I don't know. I've just always err on the side of honesty. Now, for me, Jimmy, that wouldn't be a tough question because two reasons. One, I'm quite comfortable telling somebody what I'm looking for. And number two, I've thought about it so much. It's not, it's not a difficult question for me. And hopefully if you're asked, hey, sir, and they'll probably call you sir, what kind of girl do you want? Then at that point, she's put the ball in your court with a straightforward, I think, fairly straightforward question. And because of that, she deserves an answer. Now, at this point, I was talking earlier about separating yourself from other people in your profile. You might also try to separate yourself in your answers. So in this case, right now, if she asks me, well, sir, what kind of girl do you want? I'm going to try not to be very vague and vanilla because that's not answering her question at all. I would want to, because I've thought about this, I would want to reveal something to her that might make her, if she had a list of foreigners, that she would write me on that list and why. So I would want to say something she would remember. What kind of girl do I want? Well, yeah, you can say you want somebody you're attracted to. That's not surprising. It's all right to tell the Filipina that you find her very attractive. How can you not? There's so many of them. But at this point, maybe you focus a little bit more on character. I want someone who is, somebody that, would make a good mother. And she's going to want to have children. We haven't even talked about that. If you're somebody that still wants to have a baby, and a lot of foreigners do, then you'd say, I'm looking for somebody that would make a good mother, or I'm looking for somebody with morals. I'm looking for somebody that is honest. I'm looking for somebody that's mature enough to marry a man from another country, or I'm looking for somebody mature enough to marry an older foreigner, or something like that. I'm looking for somebody, that can go to worship services with me. You obviously want somebody with character. If you've had bad experiences in the past, then you might want to bring up some traits that would be opposite of those. And, but that's something to be prepared for anyway. Just try not to be, well, I'm looking for a cute girl. I'm looking for somebody that's nice. I'm looking for someone that's simple. I don't know. That's not, I can't really, that doesn't really give me a lot to work with. Another way to blow out the Filipina is by being too busy. Why would a man who has a chance to marry a lovely Filipina be too busy for developing a relationship with her? She might be chomping at the bit, anxiously waiting to hear from him, especially if she isn't involved with anybody else at that time. But when he tells her he is busy doing this or that, he's got other plans, I would think that would stall any momentum. My advice would be to not get involved with trying to find a Filipina online until you are ready to make a commitment to this process. My guess is she would interpret being too busy as not being interested, and I would tend to agree. There is another way to blow up with a Filipina: by giving up too easily. Well, the man can't be too pushy. He can't give up too easily either. And what would cause him to do this? It could be that he gets impatient with the Filipina. It may be that he sees any friction as an indication that it won't work. Or maybe her work schedule makes it difficult to find quality time to chat with her. But if both sense that they have something cooking with each other, then they will make the time, whether it's chatting a lot when they get the chance, or waiting for her job situation or family situation to allow her more time to chat. It is possible he might feel like it isn't going well when there is little reason to actually feel that way. So you don't want to go into it looking for reasons for it not to work. Another way here is by not wearing decent clothes. You could blow it by not wearing decent clothes. If he is going to appear on webcams wearing, a wife beater t-shirt, he might as well just not even bother. I would hope a smart Filipina would want the foreigner to take the initiative to put on something decent looking. If he wouldn't wear a wife beater shirt on a date, he shouldn't do it on camera. From what I can tell, Filipinas want their man to look nice, to comb their hair. They call it clean cut appearance. When others see their boyfriend or husband, she may take it personally if you don't look nice. Because, when she sees others observing you, she's thinking about what kind of adjustment have I made in this man? Does this man look presentable? It's like going to the Philippines. She doesn't want you to go looking gaunt and emaciated, because that makes it look like she can't feed you. She also, wants you to, trim your hair up. I've had to make those adjustments, no question about it. My wife pretty much totally redid my wardrobe, and eventually I just let her do that because I noticed it was important to her, and she had good taste in clothes. So instead of her feeling like she has to change the man, it would be smoother if he just agreed that he should have a nice appearance. That's what she's going to want. And this sounds like a relatively simple thing to do to avoid blowing it with a Filipina. They usually ask, "Are you a serious man?" Well, that's kind of the bookend of, "Are you a simple woman?" Well, they're all simple, and I'm sure we all like to think of ourselves as serious men. I don't think I was ever asked that question. I would probably say, well, I think I'm a serious guy, but what do you mean? In what ways do you want a foreigner that you marry to be serious? You know, is she talking about he works, 40, 50 hours a week? Does it mean he invests a lot of time in the marriage? Does it just mean he doesn't lie? Does it mean he gives her a lot of attention? He doesn't just marry her and then kind of go back to living like he's serious. You can say, yeah, I think I'm a serious guy, but what do you mean exactly? Um, you know, Nothing wrong with that. I think you'll get a better answer uh, by asking her that, because she does want somebody with a sense of humor. It seems like that's always a big thing or trait for a woman, that she wants a guy that can make her laugh. In America, I got sick and tired of hearing that. You're looking for a wife, and if there's nothing else, I want somebody that can make me laugh. Well, it's almost like that was the most important thing. And it certainly isn't. You don't want to be sour and dour, gloom and doom serious all the time, because, that's not good for her either. That's why I would want to know, what do you mean by being serious? I might take a stab at answering it first, but I'd want her to know, to ask. Another way to blow it is by talking too much about past relationships. Talking too much about past relationships. And this would apply whether they were good or bad. If she hears the man complaining about past relationships, she might assume she will always hear about it, or she might think that this foreigner is hard to please. His focus needs to be on her, on each other. That's why I said, don't be tempted to move beyond where you should be going. If you've got emotional wounds from the past, uh, dating a Filipina online or marrying a Filipina is not going to cover up those wounds. They really have to be healed first. Whether you need counseling or just more time away, what you don't want to do is bring problems into that relationship. The focus needs to be on each other. Down the line, now, I'm sure some things about each other's past will come up, but talking too much about the past is a good way to make her think that you are still living in the past and not ready for a relationship with that Filipina. Don't mention other chatmates, a twit in the Philippines. Certainly nothing wrong with not mentioning other chatmates. You don't have to reveal information that you're not being asked. So, you don't have to, I don't know, brag. It could be a form of bragging and say, man, ever since I joined this dating site, I just am overwhelmed with all these Filipinas. I've got 30 on my list. I've talked to 10 already. I'm going to do some more chats when we hang up. Yeah, just don't mention it. Um, no reason to mention that at all. So good comment. Don't say you have Filipina friends. Just don't do it. They won't accept your explanations. Jimmy Boom Boom. Don't say you have Filipina friends. I can agree with you, Jimmy, because friends to you probably means something different to her, because in the Philippines they move much quickly, many times, into a serious relationship. Meeting somebody in person a couple times to her might mean you're ready to meet mom and dad. To you, you're thinking, yeah, I just met this really nice woman I think I'm comfortable with, and I'd like to hang out with her for a while. Um, I've heard foreigners say this, my wife sees me talking to a woman in the grocery store. Maybe I'm just making small talk with the woman in the checkout stand, and maybe I've always done that, and it's just being polite. She might think there's a different twist on it, so you have to be careful about that. There are more times than I can. I'm surprised how many times here in Nebraska you'll talk to somebody getting a newspaper, pay your gas, or anything in a grocery store or Dollar Tree, and they'll say, Hi, hon, you know, it'll be $8, sweetie, or something like that, and maybe it's just part of the country that they're from. But, I hear that a lot. And I think personally, that's just the way they are. They say that's the way they talk. I had a guy at work say that women at work were in trouble, got him in trouble because he was always saying the same type of things. But I think that was just kind of a cultural thing where he was from. But a Filipina, you know, is going to think that maybe maybe you're better than just acquaintances. So you just have to say at one time, no, hon. And if it really bothers you, I won't do it. But I'm just polite, or I've known this person all my life. They're not a relative. They're not a girlfriend. There's nothing going to be serious there. But yeah, I don't want to ignore them. So I think it's right just to say hi, hello, how are you? She might think you got more than that going on. So you just merely have to inform her about that. I want to invite them to group chats, a twit in the Philippines, a group chat, with your prospects. If you had 5 Filipinas, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if you're suggesting something way off the beaten path here. Of course, I'm always trying to be serious about stuff. That would be one way to say, okay, you guys, I've got you all together here. I'm serious. I don't want to spend the rest of my life making a decision. Do you guys want to agree to have a group chat? And I don't know if that's what you're alluding to, group chat. You and okay, you're just kidding with me now, Twit in the Philippines. I'm just wondering if that might not be a far-fetched idea. Reminds me of the time I had 2 insurance people, life insurance, and they both told me, pulling me in both directions, that their policy was better than the other. I finally said, look, I'm tired of being told I'm making a bad choice by going with the other guy. So why don't you come over to my place after supper, bring your information, unpack it all on the table, and let's just hash it all out. Who has the best plan? And we did. And one of them decided, yeah, I have to admit, we don't have that. That plan is a little better. That would be very bold, and I'm not sure that would work because of the nature that they are very protective, jealous. But wouldn't that be nice if you could just say, hey, let's all get together and I'm going to narrow it down, and that would be a perfect world, I'm afraid, and not the type of one that we have. But I like the thought. I really do. Maybe sister wives. You mean sister wives? I'm not sure what you mean. Talking to the family in a group chat. I actually like that idea from the standpoint of getting to know people, or getting to know the family if their English is good. That would be bold, but they would know that, hey, this foreigner is serious. He wants to have a group chat. Who knows where that can go? Jimmy Boom Boom, they will get a friend to send you a friend's request on Facebook to test you. Okay. Well, is that a dirty trick? Probably in some way, because as men, we're always, if we're in the market, we're always open for someone that would make us a good choice. I don't know. I would feel bad if somebody did that, because then I would feel like I had to explain why I did that. And I would probably make a good case for, well, I did talk to this woman. We haven't made any absolute commitments to each other, have we? So until we do, until we decided to go steady, I'm available to, whoever I think would make me the best wife. And that's pretty sneaky if they would do that, but I suppose it could happen. So thanks for bringing that up. That's just a little danger there to watch out for. I'm glad I didn't have to experience something like that. Another thing my wife mentioned that you would have to be in person to tell was having dirty fingernails. Uh, My wife said that would be a way to blow it. That would be a big turnoff, having dirty fingernails. Um, you know, uh, dirty fingernails, personal hygiene matters. If she had dirty fingernails or some other way of bad hygiene, you would probably say the same thing. So in that case, you don't even have to know anything about them or have had a conversation with them. You just make those visual, um, those looks and make your determination on something you see. Yeah, it's important to be well groomed. Don't have your hair look like you just got up in the morning, um, or you got a 5 o'clock shadow if you don't look good with a 5 o'clock shadow. That's just common sense, but again, something you should know. Um, how about this one? By being too needy, you can come across as being too needy and blow it with a Filipina. This could be in person or online. Have to be careful here. Now, I certainly was needy since I had been alone for 30 years, but I could not allow that to come across as desperation or creepiness with someone. You may have an understandably strong need for a wife, yet need to control your comments so the Filipina can see how you can help her and how she can help you. If she came across as needy to the man, he would likely feel like she might be emotionally high maintenance and look for, someone else to date. By being clingy, not allowing her enough space when you're meeting her, not allowing her enough space. This could be hard if you're afraid of losing her. It's a wonderful feeling, of course, to be able to communicate regularly with a lovely Filipina, to anticipate it during the day or at work. If the man sends too many text messages, puts pressure on the Filipina to talk more than she is comfortable with at the time, or bombards her with video messages, Viber stickers, and so on, the Filipina is likely to retreat. The foreigner needs to monitor the health of the relationship so he knows when he can step on the gas and when he needs to take his foot off the gas. My wife and I are not the only couples who communicated for several hours or more a day, and even more on the weekends. But this was not forced. It was totally mutual. And that's the way you want to go about that. What is poly, polyamory? I assume that would mean multiple lovers, literally. And you need to make her feel special, like she's going to be the only one. And another way you can blow it here is by demanding she cut off all other guys. This is kind of the next step up in pressure that he might put on her, by demanding she cut off all other guys. If he has found a good thing in the Filipina he has gotten to know, he could be tempted to restrict her from seeing other men. He can't literally do that, but he can tell her that he doesn't want her to talk to any more foreigners. If he demands it, that's not good. And that's different than suggesting that the two of you go steady and focus on just each other for the purpose of deepening your relationship to clarify if you can get married. That's a sensible way to do it. But just to make demands would just show her that the man is demanding, and she wouldn't want to be involved with somebody who was demanding. Nothing wrong with saying, hey, do you mind focusing on each other? I really like you. I think we have a lot of potential. Probably, my guess is she would do it. Why? Because a lot of foreign men don't do that. And so she's left entertaining a lot of guys that she thinks just want the experience of chatting with a pretty woman. What she really would like is somebody to step forward and initiate that this relationship with her is very important to him. So that's okay to do, just not by being demanding and cutting off other guys. Can I ask where you went for your first date with your wife? The first date, since, remember, I met her online on March 17th, 2015. 18 days later, I think on April 4th, I proposed to her online. She said, yes, if you will come here to marry me, to see me, which I did. We got married in 54 days. Could have been sooner, but for that 10-day law that you got to have your feet on the ground for 10 days, I think your first time in the Philippines, you can't just show up and marry someone. And I didn't have a passport, or we could have got that done even quicker. So I'm not sure how well I'm going to answer this. Our first date when I met her, well, what did we do? You might say we went to her sister's house in Cavite. That's where I proposed to her, got down on one knee, and gave her the ring. I have a video about, that day, how I proposed to her. That would probably be our first date. Other than that, she was busy trying to work out all the arrangements for our marriage, and she had a lot of work to do. I went with her on all of those places, which was good because I got to meet her friends and family and principal sponsors. We probably went to the mall and did something like that. Or maybe the first date was really our honeymoon when we went to Eden Nature's Park, one of my most favorite places in the world because it's so beautiful up there. Now, of course, you should still date your wife even after you meet her. What we do here is we usually go to a movie or something like that, or find some place to take a vacation. We like Branson, Missouri. We like that place. Another way to blow it, you don't want to do this with Filipinas by raising your voice a lot. I'm lucky because I did that a few times, but I think we were already married. So, I still learned I had to not do that. Here in America, we probably do raise our voices more than what a Filipina might be used to. So keeping a level head, not losing your temper, not raising your voice, that's important. This is not what she wants to see in her future with you. So I think this would qualify as blowing it with a Filipina. The next one is even worse. And of course, that is striking her, slapping her, pushing her. She is scared to death this could happen because there is a stereotype, like any stereotype, because there's some truth to it many times, not always. There's a stereotype that foreigners are rough with these Filipinas. And if you're going to do that, that might be a zero tolerance policy thing. When she goes to the conference for Filipinos overseas, which she needs a sticker from that to leave the country, they're going to talk to her about what to do if her husband or her fiance at any time is rough with her. So that kind of almost puts that seed in her mind that could happen. And so the way to counteract that is just to be very gentle with her. A lot of non-sexual touch. Just don't lay a hand on her. And if you're really upset, just go out for a walk. We're going to talk about anger. Anger is going to be one of my topics in the live stream one of these days. We're going to talk about anger because as guys, we tend to not do so well with that. Filipinas tend to be more sensitive. That's a major way to blow it. And I think it deserves its own live stream one of these days. Phil's to Phoenix. I've got a friend that's a Cajun redneck. He's loud even when he's trying to be quiet. I know people like that. It took his wife Cindy, a long time or a while to get used to him, but now looks at him like family. Yeah. Well, apparently this man, in addition to being loud, is also a reasonably nice guy. If he's loud and he's kicking things and throwing things and using obscenities, that's a major turnoff. Some guys just have a decibel level that just seems to me far greater than what they need. And some guys actually are hard of hearing and they don't even know how loud they're talking about. But I think what I'm referring to here is the kind when you got to watch out for your tone of voice, and you got to watch out for your, you know, the inflections, the tone, the volume, because these things she can pick up on, and you may be able to tone it down, but who knows? Maybe your body language or something lets her know that you're about ready to explode if you could. So this is something, again, we need to talk about that one of these days. But watch your voice. Don't raise your voice. If you do once in a while, hey, you're human. You just don't want it to be something that she thinks, it just takes a little bit to set you off. And let's face it, you're going to feel a lot better if you don't lose control and raise your voice. Yeah, I agree. Not violent, just loud. I know people like that. They're just jovial, loud. Maybe they're just serious. They don't even try to be that way. They just are. But that's just his personality. Conversely, some people are just very quiet and talk, lower, and they probably wish at times, they could be a little bit louder. Another reason, or another way to blow it with a Filipina, is by treating her like a sex object. And like the question earlier, don't ask her to, walk in front of the camera and turn around right away, because she will feel like a sex object. And, there might be some Filipinas that wouldn't be offended by, making her feel like a sex object. Nevertheless, I think it's best to let her know you are attracted to her, then focus on the rest of her, the qualities that she has that will not fade away. I tell my wife maybe 20 to 1 how I appreciate her inner qualities. And that's a good idea, because, the beauty is not going to last. Sure, she's gorgeous. It's not going to always be that way. Sad to say. But her character can become more beautiful as the years go by. Nothing wrong with picking out a beautiful Filipina. But, if she's not beautiful on the inside, she's going to look pretty unattractive overall anyway, eventually. So lots of good compliments. Also, we kind of touched on this earlier about food. You can blow it with Filipina by refusing to try Filipino food. There's a guy on 90 Day Fiancé who is known for this. He went out to the Philippines, met her family, and just refused to try. I'm not going to try. And that's not a good idea. If it's balut, maybe you have a reason not to try that. But you might try to focus on the Filipino food that you do like. If it's just not something that you like. There was this one time years ago, I was with a guy. He invited me over with another guy, and he had an Asian wife, maybe my first experience ever. And she made us dinner, and I could tell by the smell that I was in trouble, because I'm a very picky eater. 10, 12 foods, that's about all I need to be happy. Maybe not even that sometimes. But I think it was the vinegar. It was awful. I didn't want to offend them by saying, no, I just don't think I can do this, or lie and say I was not hungry because I showed up. So what I did was, when they weren't looking, I'd take these napkins, and when they were looking, and I'd spit out that bite. And then I'd put some more in and chew it up as small as I could go, keep drinking lots of water, and when they weren't looking, grab another napkin. And by the time the evening was over, I had my pockets full of napkins and Kleenexes and stuff like that. Maybe more experience, I would have handled it differently, but I just could not get that food down. Balut isn't that bad. That's like fertilized duck embryos, right? You've had that last May and you're still alive, Phil's to Phoenix. Kind of tasted like a hard-boiled egg. Well, that's good. A lot of people, they're careful to avoid that. Just avoid the vinegar. I think that's a vinegar smell of that story I told you about the food that just kind of upset my stomach, just smelling it. Another way to blow it with a Filipina, caught in a lie. That would be a bad thing. You know, if the two are married, of course, you can't end it because of a lie. But at the stage of pre-marriage, this would make her feel unable to trust you enough to invest much more time in the relationship. And so would this next one, by not allowing her to chat with your family or friends. Could this happen where she says, hey, can I talk to your mom or your dad or your family or siblings, you know, or your pastor, which my wife wanted to do? But by not allowing her to do this, could blow it. My wife wanted to chat with my mom and my aunt and my pastor, and they'd never done that before. Well, now they have. My pastor kind of did some premarital screening on Skype with my wife. I told him, say whatever you want. I'll be back when you're done. And when they were done, he said, you know, thumbs up. I approve your relationship with her because, you know, we were planning on getting married in the Philippines. So talking to my mother and my aunt made my wife feel that she could trust me and my family. And I really like that idea. Now, having said that, at the time we did that, I really didn't screen them out. For all I know, one or both of them could have said something regretful. They could have said something to blow it, but I never talked to them about what to say, how to respond. You know, I just said, go ahead, talk to Isa. There she is. And, you know, kind of helped them a little bit with the logistics of the webcam. And now, if you know your family, of course, is thinking that you're making a big, big mistake with a Filipina, well, then you wouldn't want her to talk to your family, but you would also, I think, want to take seriously, at least consider what they say, because maybe they've seen something that you're not willing to acknowledge. Otherwise, I think it would be a good idea to let her chat with your family. I'm glad we did. Another way, as we are coming to the end of my 32, but you guys have thrown in probably another 8 or 10, and there's probably even more than that. Another way to blow it is by inconsistent communication. Remember, a Filipina is going to be serious about you, maybe sooner than you are with her. And if, let's say, you're both serious, being inconsistent could blow it. You can be overwhelming by wanting more conversation than the relationship is able to bear, or not communicate enough, and both would be a turnoff. So would starting and stopping. This makes it hard for the relationship to gain traction. And if she has other suitors, she might want to give them more of her attention. So don't blow it by having inconsistent communication. Also, here's another one. You may feel differently. By communicating with other Filipinas if she is against it. You could blow it by communicating with other Filipinas if she is against it. And kind of similar to what we've talked about already, if you don't think a relationship with her has potential, then you would be better off ending it. However, if she really liked you and you liked her, you would be in a tough spot if she lets you know that she would prefer you suspend talking to other Filipinas. That doesn't mean necessarily that she is being controlling. You know, it could be a cultural thing again. It just means that she sees great potential and doesn't want to lose you. Now, I'm glad my wife wanted to focus exclusively on me, as I already said. Because now we're married and she wanted somebody that wasn't playing games, and I showed her that I wasn't. And if it had not worked out, you know, I would have just moved on, but fortunately it did. Another obvious one would be by telling jokes involving sex. That might be something you can get away with in America, but I think this would blow it with a lot of Filipinas. I think the kind that you would want to marry. And, many feel just public display of affection is unacceptable and indecent. And it would be uneasy hearing sexually explicit jokes from this foreigner. So I don't see a point in doing this. It certainly isn't going to impress her, and neither will this next action by losing your temper. We talked about that earlier. Filipinos tend to be non-confrontational. Losing one's temper is never attractive and hardly ever, effective or beneficial in any way. So when you're married, of course, tempers need to be controlled. And a good way to blow it with a Filipina is to lose your temper around her or even with other people. Doesn't even have to be directed at her. If my wife hears me get upset with a customer service representative and she takes that personally, she just does not like to see me get worked up. So keep that in mind. It's better for your blood pressure anyway. Now, the last one here, before I'll just look at some comments before we close, is my wife will be home in about 10 minutes or so, would be, and we talked about, by making disparaging remarks about the Philippines. Could be about a lot of stuff. Could be about the poverty. Could be about, sending money to the Philippines, the pollution, the means of transportation, the jeepneys, anything, because they'll be sensitive about the Philippines. Try to focus on saying good things about the Philippines and be complimentary about the Philippines. But this one is a little bit of a minefield because you're not sure what she's going to take the wrong way. So be ready to apologize here, if you've said something that that she takes offense to. But that doesn't mean you've blown it necessarily. Some ways are worse than others. So I'll just take a look at some comments. Certainly can chime in with some of those before we close. Homophobia in relation to ladyboys. Could that be a sign of blowing it? Homophobia in relation to ladyboys. My answer to that would be yes, that could blow it. And why would that be? Chances are, because that's so prevalent in the Philippines, the Filipina that you're talking to very well might know somebody that is a ladyboy. And, she'll probably think this man is being judgmental. And, I've talked to my wife about that. I'm not saying that my wife agrees with that, but because it is so prevalent, she very well may react to that as you attacking, a Philippine type thing or Asian phenomenon. So I think you have to be careful about that. You don't have to be a fan of ladyboys, but you might not want to preach on it either. If you feel like it, let her know how you feel about it, by all means. I mean, you can't have a good relationship if you don't know how each other feels about things. Balut isn't that bad. Yeah, okay, I missed that one comment earlier. So, you guys, I appreciate your comments. This has been in depth, which is what I prefer for these live streams. In the future, some may not be as long, but what I want you to do is to be able to go to that description box and print things off like this, or in the previous live chats, questions, because I really do want to help guys who are involved with a Filipina. So just disparaging remarks in general are something to avoid. You know, even though I've been married for about 3.5 years now to my Filipina, I still have to be careful not to blow it with my love beyond the sea. So before we close, if anybody else has a comment about anything whatsoever, if you're up late, so to speak, some of you men probably don't get off work until later. I only do this because I can get it done pretty much before my wife comes home from work, which reminds me, I had my mother start her rice for her about 10 minutes ago because I wouldn't want to find out what would happen to my wife if she missed out on her rice. It's another thing, about food and blowing it. Don't try to twist your Filipina's arm about giving up rice because she's not going to do that. It doesn't matter if you say, look at these studies here that talk about the value of brown rice or black rice or red rice or whatever kind of rice there is, because she's probably not going to want to do that. So I don't personally think white rice is the best food in the world. I used to eat a lot of brown rice. Now I hardly ever eat it at all because Isa doesn't cook brown rice. I could too, but I just kind of got out of the habit of cooking rice. So be careful with her eating habits. Um, you know, yeah, French fries. My wife bought some French fries last week. Thankfully, she doesn't eat as many of them as I would eat because I can go through a bag in probably 2 times. Not hard at all. She might make it last, 5 or 6 different occasions. So that's good. My wife is careful. She always tells me I'm never going to get fat because it's in my genes. I try to tell her, I hope you're right, sweetheart. But a lot of people say that, and it doesn't work out that way. So, yeah, rice, just let her have her rice, I guess, let her have her French fries. I don't think my wife really eats much of anything else that, that bothers me. Phil Phoenix, John, great live stream. Thank you very much. Take care. And Mayong Pasco. That's a new one. Okay. My pronunciation is terrible. Don't make fun of it. But Merry Christmas to you. That's probably what you're saying. It's almost that time. And Christmas time next year, I hope to be in the Philippines with my wife living in our house that is already built. And she will be going there in January to buy all the furniture and what do you call it? Not accessories, but appliances to put in there to apply the finishing touches so she has it exactly the way she wants. And so, yeah, it's pretty much this time, 12 months from now, which will go by fast, I'll be in the Philippines again. Chocolate and panais go together. Well, interestingly enough, Jimmy, I eat a lot more chocolate than my wife. Maybe I've turned her off to chocolate. I probably eat, I'm not ashamed to say, 7 ounces a day. That's, I don't have anything with me, but it's 2 bars about the size of this checkbook. That's about 500 calories a piece. So that's 1,000 calories total a day of dark chocolate, just dark chocolate alone. I really like dark chocolate. My wife doesn't really eat it. Somebody gave my mother a little bag of some chocolates last night that are really good. There's one sitting on the table all by itself, which is probably for my wife, and she didn't eat it. I grabbed a handful right away. They're really good, but maybe I should be glad my wife isn't in the chocolate. But by the way, 88% dark chocolate is what I eat. That's very bitter. Otherwise, I could eat 2 pounds a day of milk chocolate. But this 88% stuff is very strong and powerful, and you can't eat it very fast, actually. About 200 grams of chocolate a day, a twit in the Philippines. 200 grams. I'm not sure how much chocolate that is, but chocolate is good. Chocolate is very healthy. In fact, in the Philippines, they're probably very jealous of the Panay in America, for example, because of the availability of chocolate. And when we go to the Philippines, usually my wife will buy up a whole bunch of different kinds of chocolate and take it there because they covet chocolate. Chocolate is good. Dark chocolate has so many antioxidant benefits. Now, I have to admit, to me, it doesn't taste nearly as good as milk chocolate, but I do believe that the dark chocolate is more healthy. And as I get older, I should probably be thinking about that. 7 ounces, you converted it. The chocolate in the Philippines is pretty bad. Well, that could be because they sure tend to look for it somewhere else. However, they do have some knockoffs over there that are pretty good. For example, Snickers. One day, my wife bought a bag of some chocolates, little things, like for Halloween candy, and you could tell it was an imitation of Snickers, and it tasted just like Snickers. So we made sure we had some of those bought for the plane trip home because those were good to me. Now, maybe somebody in the Philippines doesn't consider that good chocolate. Maybe it's just because it's from another country where they put more value in it. I don't know. But a gift of chocolate would mean more to a Filipina probably than it would somebody here in the United States. Okay. All right, James is kind of making me sweat here with this next comment. Just seeing it is making me uncomfortable. Wow, to prove I'm really in love, see me eat some balut on a live feed. I do love my wife very much. And if she can maybe throw in enough garlic, for example, maybe unless you think that's cheating, Jimmy, I might be open to it, especially if I could get, more subscribers, more viewers from eating balut. Would I be able to practice, Jimmy, first, to kind of build up my strength and endurance? Because I would hate to vomit on live YouTube, right, all over this keyboard, because, that would be out there for the end of time. So, if you let me practice a little bit, I'm open to that. Otherwise, I don't want to pass out on live YouTube either. But, yeah, maybe I'm going to file that away. I don't even know if that's possible here in the United States. If somebody, there's stores for everything. It's like duck eggs, duck embryo. Maybe I'm lucky and that won't happen unless I go to the Philippines. Well, then I probably have no excuse. But I hope my wife doesn't need that from me to prove my love to her. Maybe, but stuff like Cloud9 and nips taste a little weird. I'm not aware of Cloud9, so I don't know what that means exactly. Maybe you could explain. Maybe it's something to make the balut more palatable. You like their Malteser knockoff, though? There are some things that you can get in the Philippines that might remind you of home, might remind you of stuff you like to eat back here. You just have to try. I think those Snickers were about the only ones that I ate over there. but they sure don't seem to like it. Now, you're only kidding, James, but I'm actually serious because one of the most fascinating YouTube videos I've ever seen was from a guy who was, maybe you saw this, I think it was last year, maybe this year, a very talented skydiver, very talented, done it most of his life. And somebody said, do you think you could jump out of a plane at about 30,000 feet without a parachute into a net? And of course, he dismissed that as being absolutely outrageous and foolish. But the more he thought about it, the more he wondered if that could be possible. And sure enough, this guy did it. And it was the most amazing thing I think I've ever witnessed in my life. They show him jumping out of the plane. He has to have the oxygen mask on. He's kind of getting some help to make sure he's lined up right. But at some point, they let go and he's on his own. He's got to make sure he lands in that net from 30,000 feet, no parachute. He did it. He found a way. He had some GPS to make sure he could see where he's going. And then, of course, he had to flip around to probably avoid getting crushed by the net. So he landed his back. Everything had to be perfectly timed, and he did it. So he did it. He risked his life, and that's far more risky than this. But that's what I think of. You say something like that, and I'm thinking, maybe there's a way I can incorporate that in this channel. So you never know, James. You might see that someday. I need to have a safety net, though, and in case it just goes very bad. But yeah, I'm thinking about that. Jack's brand, a Filipino brand, I think. Twit in the Philippines, that Shakey's pizza that I see once in a while, is that the Shakey's that used to be here in America? Because we used to have a Shakey's when I was a child, and we don't have that anymore. And it's interesting that when we go to the Philippines and go to a store, I always see stuff that used to be popular name brands when I was growing up, and there they are on the shelves in the Philippines. So either they haven't been eaten for decades, or somehow they're still being produced, just not for the United States. Oh, I'm sorry. You're not American, but I do see Shakey's Pizza, and I'm halfway inclined to believe it's the same kind when we grew up with. But yeah, I do see things in the stores that make me wonder how old they are. But yeah, they're probably brand new. They just don't make them. You don't see them here in the States, and haven't for a long time. Well, all of you gentlemen, thank you once again for your comments and suggestions, except for James about the balut, because I'm probably not going to sleep very well tonight, trying to wonder if I should really try to take him up on that or not. Maybe that should be added to my bucket list. We'll see. We'll think about that. But we're closing in on a couple hours. I know that's long, but the way I look at it, you guys, people can always look at this 6 months from now, or they can go through it in several parts. It's all printed out there in the description box, or it will be. I have to do that later tonight. So I enjoy this. I enjoy, the banter with you guys and your observations and your comments, because it makes for a better live stream and a better experience for everybody else. So while it's on my mind, in a couple of weeks, the topic will be about how to handle tampo. And we'll try to investigate what the Filipina is trying to accomplish, and you can learn how to better handle that if you have some insight into that. So I think you'll want to like that. So thank you for the reminder, Jimmy. Smash the like button, subscribe, share these live videos. You can get notifications. I have actually many. I got about 24 videos I haven't even put out yet, and about 70 more topics. I've written, and probably another 10 or 15 topics I haven't even added to that list. And there's ways I'd like to incorporate my wife if that's possible. So I'm trying to have a channel that would be appealing in many ways. So I do appreciate the subscribers, and share these videos to anybody you know if they have some thought about, foreigner Filipina relationship. I'm certainly trying to get guys. I make no doubt or make no bones about it. I think Filipinas make good wives. I have for many years. A guy at work, his Filipino wife is going to be here next month probably. He's a younger guy, 37 at the time. He asked my wife where we met. She said Christian Filipino website. He joined. A few months later, got engaged. Then he got married. And so we're looking forward to meeting her too. There's a couple other guys that are married to Filipinas there. So there's a lot more than you know. So I'd like to help people that are in a relationship with a Filipina have a good one, maintain it, and if you're not in that boat yet, but you're at least curious, I hope I can at least make you put your toe in the water a little bit, kick the tires, and learn about relationship with foreigners and Filipinas. So thank you all for your involvement here, because it is not the same without you, and I really appreciate that. So you guys have a good weekend here coming up, because it's almost the weekend. And last comment here, hope she's Bisaya, uh, so your wife can have a bud. I'm not sure what you mean there, Jimmy. uh, Not sure. So I can have a bud, as in Budweiser. That's another no-no. Filipinas probably prefer you don't drink alcohol either. So you better ask her about that. She certainly would not want you to be intoxicated. So Twit in the Philippines, appreciate it. Hope you guys are learning from it. My friend's wife. Oh, buddy. So my wife can have a buddy. It must be because I'm trying to get off here before my wife comes home. But we can talk about that later. Thank you, Jimmy, for all your comments, except for the one about proving my love by eating balut. That's really got me shaken up now. So I need to end this live stream. Thank you once again. Look forward to it in a couple of weeks. And everybody, take care.